Yeah, I woke up to the news of seeing what happened in Venezuela, which is it's crazy, right? Um, I have a unique perspective, and I just kind of want to get it out on record, before the swaths of different people, journalists, and ideas that get out there. Uh, just want to present a unique take on it. Just to give you some background, I actually lived in Venezuela for a little bit, for about 4 years. I lived in a city called Ciudad Ojeda, a little small oil town off the coast of Lago Maracaibo, which is Lake Maracaibo. It was the western side of Venezuela. Uh, what's going on now is happening in Caracas, right? But yeah, I just wanted to, I worked in the oil and gas industry. And so, I lived there, spoke Spanish, was involved, but in the culture to some degree. And I also was under the regime of Hugo Chavez. If you remember, Hugo Chavez was the previous uh, dictator before the current Nicolas Maduro. And if you don't remember, Hugo Chavez ultimately got cancer, and he ultimately died. And his hand-picked successor, which was his kind of number one guy in his military, was Nicolas Maduro, and that's how he came to power. So, um, and then since then, he's been in power since. So there's always been questions since I was there about the democratic process, about the elections. Yes, there was issues with the elections. I saw it happen in real time in terms of votes not being counted, districts, just all this crazy stuff. So yeah, there is some things going on there. But the real reason I'm making this video is just to kind of give you guys kind of what the real reason for this invasion is. And I mean, it's gonna be obvious all over the news. It's oil. But what does it mean that okay, it's oil? Well, just from my background, I can kind of give you an idea. The issue is that if you look on Wikipedia, do any kind of research, you'll see that Venezuela has the largest oil reserves almost in the world, but especially in this side, in this hemisphere. But the issue with Venezuelan oil is the fact that it's a heavy style crude. So basically, what that means is it's not the highest grade. It's not the what you say the top shelf liquor. It's like very very bottom of the barrel. When I say bottom of the barrel, meaning it takes a lot of money to make it financially viable to get it up to the grade of jet fuels and all the different fuel combinations that you want. So it's not as profitable. So during the production, when you produce it, it produces a lot of sulfur, a lot of heavy things that you got to deal with, et cetera, right? As opposed to uh, somewhere in the Middle East where when they drill, the oil comes out easy because it's in a nice, beautiful sandstone matrix, and it just easily comes out. You know, so in other words, it's almost like trying to get water from a potato and then get juice from an orange. It's just you can just squeeze an orange and the juice comes out. That's kind of what they have in the Middle East. And the in the potato example is what Venezuela has. But what we have in the United States trying to get oil from shale is like trying to get water from a stone, an actual stone. The shale is usually embedded in a clay sandstone matrix, and it takes a lot of money, pressure, and a lot of things to get it out. So I don't want to get too far deep into that, because it can get kind of technical, but you kind of get the picture. And when I was in Venezuela, let me tell you, the wells there, like a normal well here in the United States, could be, you have to drill 15 to 16,000 feet. That's the combined total depth. I mean, that's a combined measured depth of the well, but the total depth would be 8,000 or 9,000 feet that you have to drill. In Venezuela, there were wells that we would drill 2,000 feet. I mean, just like zzz, we were just doing them like this. We would knock them out just like this, and they would produce like crazy. So yes, they do have heavy oil, but they have a lot of really good oil that's easy to reach. But just the total amount of oil is just unprecedented. I mean, it's like the holy grail of oil, and it's everywhere in the country. Not only that, they have gold and definitely gold. I'm not sure about I'm sure there's some minerals, but I haven't done any research on it. But the biggest thing that they're going to be after is going to be oil and gas. And I can kind of tell you what it stems from. When I was there, a lot of people don't talk about this, but I was there. The Chavez regime did a asset seizure. He nationalized the oil companies. The oil company was already nationalized. It was called PDVSA. PDVSA was the national state oil company, but under Hugo Chavez, they nationalized American assets, and the American asset. And I mean, you can look it up. It was ExxonMobil, and I was there during that time. And so ExxonMobil lost tons and tons of money. And not only ExxonMobil lost money, a lot of other companies, service companies, lost monies tied to those assets, services, etc. when that seizure happened. So not only that, Coca-Cola lost money. People not going to talk about that. It wasn't an asset seizure, but because it was such a bad scenario, certain products, it was kind of almost like a sanction. Coke stopped sending their products. American products weren't making it to the shores, and I was there, so I suffered through this. We went to the market, and there were no meats. There were no meats. There were no things. Eggs. There was shortages and things of that nature. So, but the point is that those assets were seized, and so since then, United States kind of had it out to, not only to recover those assets, but to kind of they really want to get the real true assets, which are the reserves. And with most countries, their protection, especially when they're the state oil companies, you're not going to strong on their natural resource. So as a service company, you can come over there and work, but they're not going to structure a deal to where you can make out, where you can quote unquote capitalize. So the contracts that the American companies did have, they weren't necessarily profitable as they wanted them to be, and they weren't necessarily favorable. But what ended up happening was there were deals struck, as you know, Venezuela for a very long time under Hugo Chavez, even under Citgo, which is a Venezuelan company, which is part of PDVSA, would send oil, heavy oil, because they did not have refining capacity. They would send it to the United States to refine it. So, it's like kind of like, what is the problem in Venezuela? I mean, you would think that Venezuela ideally should look like what modern Dubai is, what that's the level of wealth that they have. But obviously, with certain regimes, there are some struggles to get past, and so the oil infrastructure over the years they have struggled, right? They have struggled, and they haven't been able to. Um, uh, they haven't been able to com- compete with a capitalist American venture, for example. Case in point, when I was in Venezuela, I was there, and we had arrived, and we went to the pump, and I got in. When I say went to the pump, I was in a taxi, went to the back, said, "Okay, we need to stop and get some gas," and so we drove up, and we went to go fill up, and then I looked. I was like, "Hold up, man! Is the pump broke?" Because I did my quick math. This dude just paid like 35 cents. So I was like, "You got to be kidding me! 35 cents!" And come to find out that the oil was subsidized. So it was known out there that gas was 5 cents a gallon. This was back then in the 2000s. A gallon of gas was 5 cents even back then, and I was blown away. You could fill up a car for under $1.50, right? This was because one of the socialist programs that the Hugo or that that the people actually wanted was they had all this oil. They didn't want to actually be paying for it. I mean, it makes sense. You have all this oil. At least you can have is cheap oil. I mean, the cheap products of gas, and so that's one of the things that they fought for, and that's what they kept. So gas was dirt cheap. But the caveat to that was gas was cheap, but inflation took a different turn. So you could fill a car up for $5, but the actual car itself would cost 100 grand at that time. So it was a weird scenario. Even when I was there, I was trying to buy a little bitty old car at that time. So a car that probably in the United States would go for $2,000 or $3,000. Over that sucker was selling for 19, 20, $30,000, and then there was a 6 month waiting list. It was very crazy. You know, uh, the inflation was so bad. Sticking to the subject of cars, that used car prices were more expensive than the new cars. Well, sounds familiar. This is type of stuff we're dealing with here in the United States. We saw that. We saw used car prices become more expensive than the new prices. But back to the point. I just want to say that so this is really about United States having a strategic source of oil, because the green revolution, uh, although it is good for the planet, it may not uh, it may not be sizing up the way the capitalists would like, in terms of it's a lot of the as you look at Tesla, you look at what's going on with these companies, uh, wind energy and stuff. It's a lot of engineering and investment that needs to be made. um, and so capitalists always want the an easy fix, right? And the problem with our current scenario, I mean, we can brag about American oil production, but it's really, we have kind of a Ponzi scheme when it comes to production. We have shale oil. As I was saying, it's like trying to get water from a turnip or a potato. It's a matrix that's very condensed. You have to drill into it, you have to fracture, you have to pressure it just to get something that goes like this. A decline curve like this. It comes out very high and it falls off like that, like a cheetah. It runs very fast for 2 minutes and then it goes off, right? And the oil, the production curves down there, I tell you, this is no joke. There would be rigs oil that would be producing, and I would talk to the guys and be like, "Yeah, man, this well's been producing for 35 years straight." And you look at it, 35 years with the production that's just, I'm talking 100,000 so barrels a day for 30 years. You just think of the money that runs to your head when you think, oh my God, we drilled this well 30 years ago and it's still doing 100,000 barrels a day, 30,000 barrels a day, 20,000. We're lucky to get 1 to 2 years our best wells in the shale business that we're in here. I did this Texas well. We just don't have the formation pressure. We just don't have the oil. We don't have the technology, and it's just too much work, right? It's too much manpower and energy just to get, just to when you're like, okay, what's the easiest path of resistance? Either deal with our scenario, or let's just make up a reason and get down there for some reason, and that's exactly what's happening. And I don't support the idea of shooting and killing people in boats, right? This whole thing, it's just, you can just tell it's just a big scam just to unseat Nicolas Maduro for some drug charges and to get this time to get in the driver's seat. And then pretty much what's going to happen is going to be carte blanche to American companies to get down there, to, kind of like what happened in Iraq, and this is very sad from this vantage point, to see it happen, especially to, me being there, living in Venezuela. It feels as if like, yeah, it's an invasion because I actually had a house down there, had my family down there, right? And yeah, I just thought I'd just say that, just get that on the record, that this is that's what this is about. I mean, I'm not sure what avenues we can do to change, but awareness, at least we can know what's going on, and that we can kind of see through the lies and the hypocrisy of what the media or what the spin masters may say. So just thought I would share that with you.